There's an extra hand in my kids' photos. I paid to get professional photos done of my kids. They follow some weird variant of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Only one of them is ever smiling at once. I thought maybe it was time to bring a professional in and stop having to Photoshop different heads on the kids for their Christmas cards. Everything went fine. We had a nice outdoor session at the edge of the woods. My son and daughter hugged each other, smiled, posed, the works. Everything was fine. Until I got the photos back. As I looked at them, I noticed something. "Hey Frank," I said, "doesn't it look like there are two hands there?" He leaned over the computer. "Well, yeah. That one's Isabella's, and that one's Jack's." "No, Jack's hand is over there." I pointed. He didn't put his arm around her. He refused. Remember? But it was obvious. Isabella was putting her hand up to her shoulder, and there was a hand underneath her hand, even though Jack's hand was clearly hanging at his side. "I guess she made a mistake," Frank continued. "She was probably trying to Jack's hand around Isabella, but then forgot to Photoshop his own hand out." I frowned. I wish she told us before she did that. It looks kind of weird. The hand under my daughter's didn't really look like a child's hand at all. It was too big. Just where was this woman getting her stock images? I continued flipping through the album. I stopped to linger on a photo where Jack had, finally, wrapped his arms around Isabella. She wrapped her arms around him, too, and they were both looking at the camera. Perfect picture. Except there was an extra hand on top of Jack's. Just two fingers laying over his. I wouldn't have even noticed it if I hadn't seen the first hand. I called Frank over again. He began to laugh. "Well, I guess she's using AI. I don't think so," I said. "I mean, those are Isabella and Jack. How would AI make that?" "No, there are things with AI now where you can upload a photo and tell it to do things. Like, make it a LinkedIn picture or remove the background. And it often changes things even when you tell it not to. That's a big privacy violation," I said, my heart starting to pound. "I don't want their pictures in the system." I called her up. I probably should have given her the benefit of the doubt, but I was so angry by that point that I just started yelling. "You have no right to upload our photos into some AI," I told her. She sounded near the point of tears. "I didn't do it. I swear. Please don't write a review." Then she paused. "Wait, I'll prove it to you." The photographer, Janice, came over an hour later. She showed us the original files on the computer and their metadata. She showed them on her camera screen. In the originals, I saw the extra hand under Isabella's, the extra fingers over Jack's. She could be faking it. But she seems so sincere. When Janice left, I felt even more confused. I flipped through the photos again, staring at the extra hands. They had to be AI. They had to. We finally put the kids to sleep. Frank and I relaxed in front of the TV. "It's just so weird," I said, unable to let it go. "I know." An hour later, I went up to check on the kids. And froze. Isabella was, as usual, sprawled across her bed in a chaotic fashion, her hand hanging over the edge of the bed. Coming up from under the bed, there was another hand, holding hers. I screamed and flicked on the light. There was nothing there. Frank came running. I told him about it, and he burst out laughing. "You're going to start having nightmares about these things," he chuckled as he got on his knees and checked under the bed. Then the closet, then Jack's closet and bed. There was nothing there, of course. Nothing at all. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept checking on the kids. I kept thinking about hands. Hands attached to emaciated corpses hiding under beds. Hands attached to serial killers breaking into homes. hands attached to nothing at all, scurrying across the carpet like spiders. I finally fell asleep, but I woke up with a start at 3 a.m. As I shook off the fog of sleep, the first thing I noticed was that Frank was holding my hand, something he never did while we slept. I turned over, back and forth, and it took me a second to realize that the hand attached to mine wasn't attached to Frank at all. I screamed, and the thing seemed to disappear in the shadows of the covers. We checked everywhere. Everything. There was nothing in our room, nothing in the house. But my own hand was pulsing with pain, and 5 bright red scratches were across the palm, bleeding. "I can't do this," I sobbed. "I can't." My hand felt tingly and weird and numb. As we waited for police to show up, I flipped to my phone and looked at all the security cameras. No one had entered or exited. There was nothing there. Except, I noticed the footage at our front door from the previous day, when the 4 of us had gotten home from the park. There was a hand on my shoulder, but Frank didn't have his arm around me. Story 2. There is a clock beneath your skin. Hi, Dad. The man's face was lined but still handsome, his eyes warm and welcoming as his mouth spread into a bright, even toothed smile. "Hello there, Dolly. It's so good." He broke off in a deep bark of a laugh. "What am I doing? Give me a hug." I smiled at him, and then we embraced. It was awkward at first, but then it turned into something like a warm and comforting hug. I felt a twinge of pain in my chest. Was this the right thing? I'd felt so certain before, but now I wasn't as sure. Pulling back, he put his arm around my shoulders and ushered me into their house. "Mary, Dolly is here, hon." A woman's voice lilted from a distant room. "Be right out." Taking me into the living room, he gestured for me to sit down on the sofa. "Can I get you anything? A drink or a snack? Or if you want, you can stay for dinner tonight." I felt myself flushing a little. Oh no, I'm okay. "I appreciate it. I have somewhere to be later, and I don't want to impose." The man frowned slightly, his eyes looking sad. "You can't impose, honey. We're your parents. I know it may not feel like that. What with how you were raised and all, but it's still true." I smiled awkwardly at him. "I appreciate that. And I get what you're saying. This is all just a lot for me. So maybe it's something we build up to." He nodded and was about to say more when she entered the room. She had to be at least 20 years older than me, but she could have been my slightly older sister just by looking at her. Throwing a smiling backward glance at her husband, she rushed over to me and gave me a big hug. "Oh, doll. We've missed you so much." She leaned back to look me in the face, tears in her eyes. "Thank you so much for reaching out to us. There's been such a hole in our life without you here." Swallowing, I nodded. Yeah, I felt like it was time." Returning my nod, she sat down next to me. "We've been waiting and hoping since you turned 18. Her eyes widened as she put her hand on my arm. "That's not a criticism or guilt trip. We understand that you probably grew up with a very dim view of us. The state wouldn't let us contact you until you were an adult, giving you to that woman for all your formative years. No doubt filling your head with. Hon, don't get worked up now. Shelby is her family. The only mother she's ever really known. You speaking ill of her won't bring us closer together." He shifted his gaze to me. "Dolly, you have to understand, we don't blame you or the government or even Shelby, not really. We know what it looked like back then." My mother shook her head violently. "Bigotry is what it was. Ignorance. They claimed we were going to kill you. That the ritual was," she snorted, "some kind of satanic crap." Turning back to me, tears were spilling down her cheeks now. "We weren't going to harm a hair on your precious head. You believe that, don't you?" I shifted uncomfortably and ran my tongue along the plastic molded against the roof of my mouth. I mean, I have heard stuff, but would I be here now if I didn't want to at least give you a chance? The man leaned forward, smiling again. That's very gracious of you. Very open-minded. And it's all we ask. His lips tightened slightly. And speaking of Shelby, how is she? Is she okay with you doing this? I sucked in a shaky breath. Actually, she's dead. Died last month. The woman gave my arm a squeeze. Well, I had my problems with her, as you can tell, but I am sorry for your loss. Squinting, she caught my eye. Was she a good mother to you? Did she raise you well? I nodded. She was, yeah. Nobody's perfect, but she was good to me. Always looked out for me. Dolly. If you're reading this, then I'm dead. That sounds dramatic, like a line from a bad movie, but it's still true. And truth is the point of this letter mostly. I could waste time and words telling you how much you mean to me, how I think you saved me, at least as much as I could be saved. But hopefully our time together has shown you how much I love you, and if it hasn't, well, a posthumous letter won't be the thing to do it. So instead, this letter will focus on the truth. I've always been honest with you, partially because when the time came, as it now has, I wanted you to know you could trust me to tell you the truth. Because while I've always been honest with you, I've also always made clear there were things you were not ready to know. For the longest time I have tried to find some other way to resolve this, something that wouldn't require you to know the worst parts of this or put you at risk. Unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that there is no other way to protect you than to tell you the rest and put you in danger. Because there is a clock hidden beneath your skin. It has been there most of your life, and I can hear it winding down, the ticks growing sluggish, the talks unsteady and unsure. If it stops before we stop this, you will be utterly lost in a way that would make death seem like an endless blessing. Therefore, we should erase the clock that has been placed in you. And the path to doing that is hard, but very simple. You must kill your parents. Tell us about yourself. My father grinned at me. I admit we've done a little internet snooping to find out what we could, but there's so much more we want to know. Glancing between them, I gave a tentative smile. Sure, like what? My mother leaned closer to me. Well, you're at university, right? What have you been studying? I shrugged noncommittally. A bunch of things, really. I love English classes. That and philosophy. Not sure what I'm actually going to do when I'm done though. The man chuckled. We were the same way when we were your age. Casting about, full of passion but lacking clarity and direction, he looked past me to his wife, his smile widening. But that all came with time. I nodded. Yeah, I'm sure it did. I'm sure it will. For me. The woman put her hand back, this time on my leg. You're thinking about it, aren't you? I glanced at her, slightly bewildered. Looking back at my father, I saw a dark cloud of irritation growing in his face. Leave her be, Mar, she's doing us a kindness coming to visit. Stop pressuring her. Mary shook her head at him, but her eyes never left mine. No, I can see it. She's thinking about what we did to her. She thinks we're monsters. I frowned. No, I didn't say that. I do want to know more about it. And I glanced between them. Are you still in that cult? My father shot a hard look at my mother before turning back to me. It's a fair question, Dolly. And while to call it a cult would be somewhat inaccurate and reductive, I won't quibble over semantics. It was a group we were a part of, and that we have not been a part of for quite some time. Since you were taken from us, as a matter of fact. She gave my leg a hard squeeze. And we are so sorry for everything you went through. Losing us for so many years. Being raised by that woman. She let out a small, pretty sigh. And yes, for taking your eye teeth." My father sucked in a small breath as he studied me a moment. "You did know then that we took them in the ritual?" I nodded, tears forming in the corners of my eyes. "I did. Did you remember it, or did she tell you?" I glanced up at him. "She told me." His face was unreadable. "What else did she tell you about it?" "About us?" I shrugged. "Not a ton. Growing up, she told me you were both in a cult. That she figured out what was going on enough to call the police and interrupt some ritual. That as your aunt, she was my closest living relative and managed to get custody pretty quick. Then she adopted me the next year. And you both. Well, you both went to prison for a few months and then were back out on long-term probation. That you couldn't contact me until your sentences ran out or I turned 18 and initiated it. But a lot of it. She kept telling me there were things I didn't need to know." He was studying me now like a cat pondering a small bird. "Did she say she figured it out or that she knew? That she was part of this cult herself?" Pushing my tongue against the back of my teeth, I forced myself to meet his gaze. "She said she was part of it. That she changed her mind after the ritual started, after she heard me screaming. She called 911 and then slipped away." My mother snorted. "She betrayed us and wants to make it sound like she did something noble. I'm sorry, honey, but I'm very glad she's dead." I half expected my father to snap at her, but he was still focused on me with his lamplight stare. Finally, he nodded and smiled again. "I feel like what you said is the truth. I'd have known if you were lying, and that would have really disappointed us." I nodded, hands clutched and trembling in my lap. "I'm glad you. What did they do about your teeth?" I stopped, startled by my mother's sudden question. "What?" "Your eye teeth. They aren't missing, but they are a bit darker than the rest." She pushed a bit closer and squinted at my mouth. "What did they put in there?" A partial. I've had a partial since. Well, since Shelby got me. They couldn't do anything permanent while I was still growing so much. I'm supposed to go in to get fitted with ceramic implants this summer." She beamed at me. "That'll be lovely, dear." She looked past me. "Won't it, honey?" "Oh yes." That's just the thing. I expected him to be smiling when I looked in his direction, but his face was still stony. "Another question I have though, if you don't mind." My heart was pounding so loud it took me a second to make out what he was actually saying. I hope they didn't notice my delay or just chalked it up to nervousness. Either way, I was in it now. I just had to be careful. Yeah. Sure." He leaned forward in his seat toward me. "Did she tell you to come here?" "I'd like to tell you I'm not to blame for what happened to you. Not because I want to lie to you, but because I want so desperately for it to be true. But the truth is that my nephew, and that thing he calls his wife, would never have been able to correctly execute the ritual without my instruction. Yes, I had an attack of conscience and called the police, but it was too late to stop it. The methods I'd laid out granted boons to all three of us as part of the ritual and bargain, and I could feel my reward flowing through me even as I lied to the 911 operator about everything but where you were and who had you. I left that night before they brought you out, and while I still heard your cries, the fact that I didn't want to be there to see it should have been warning enough. Maybe it was, and yet a part of me still planned all of this, keeping the knowledge I had gained while still forging some illusory path to redemption by raising you and keeping you away from them. I don't know myself anymore, because I'm not the same as I was then in many ways. Time and my love for you have softened some sharp edges while creating new ones. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I have to avoid sentimentality and get to the point. The point is that the three of us, along with a few inconsequential hangers-on that got nothing but criminal records, made a deal with a being from another dimension. A place called Incarnata. This creature is not a demon person, though depending on your perspective, that may come down to semantics. It is a deal maker and a trickster, however, often working within the framework of trading for something of value, something you love. In a sane world, parents giving their child to this thing would work fine, as they would love their child. For myself at the time, and for those too, we had little interest in or attachment to you. That's where my clever second method for imbuing you with value to this thing came in. There is magic, very old, primal magic, that relies on suffering. The ritual I constructed required a token sacrifice up front, your 2 eye teeth. That, among other things done and said, set the contract between us and it. The idea being that over the next 20 years or so, you would be made to suffer terribly, building up a great reservoir of pain, of potential power to be tapped. This would make you very valuable when your time, your clock, ran out and you were collected. I put a kink in that plan by having you taken from them. It wouldn't have been much of an obstacle by itself, but they are afraid of me and don't fully appreciate how badly things will go for them without a proper payment when it comes due. My nephew asked for power, and he received it. I understand he is capable of notable, if pedestrian, forms of magic from time to time. His wife asked for beauty, health, and youth, and while this is foolish and vain, she is not an idiot. She made herself very hard to kill by most means. I asked for knowledge, the thing I'd always wanted most in life. The funny part is once I had it, instead of wanting more, I wanted much less. I understood and saw myself differently, saw how small and pathetic I was, we all were. And I understood how pointless and terrible it would be for you to have a lifetime of suffering. So I took you in. At first I tried to make amends out of guilt and self-loathing, but in time it was done more out of love for you. I'm sure you deserved a much better mother, but no one else could have kept them from you. While they don't fully understand how dangerous not inuring you through pain over the years will be for them, they have some dim knowledge that it was the plan and should be seen through. If not for their ignorance and arrogance, their fear of what's coming might have overridden their fear of me. I don't tell you these things now capriciously. They are part of my last best gifts to you, and my hope is collectively they will be enough to set you free of the thing we bound you into all those years ago. Read every bit of this carefully and thoroughly, but above all, please pay attention to my advice that follows. First, never directly lie to them. They will be able to tell. You can be vague, you can lie by omission, you can play semantic games. They may not trust you, but it will not be sensed the way a pure lie will, and my hope is their stupidity and arrogance will make them reckless in the face of anything other than a red flag. Second, I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm suggesting what needs to happen to get a certain result. If they ask you, did I tell you what to do or did I send you, I'm telling you now that the truthful answer is no. I am providing information, not directing you to do any particular thing. Have this firmly in mind at all times. No. She didn't tell me to do anything. And now she's dead. My father nodded and smiled, his face relaxing a little. Good. I want this to be your decision. He stood up and gestured for me to do the same. Would it be okay if I showed you something? I rose uncertainly. Yeah, I guess so. Great, come with me. Hun, you come too so you can see her face. I think she's going to love it. I heard my mother get up behind me and I tried to speed up so I was closer to him without drawing attention to it. We were going down a long, wide hallway now, and on the right there was now a door. Had it been there a moment before? I felt my heart pounding louder as he reached out to the ornate knob and turned it. This is your room, Dolly. We made it a few years ago. Well, I made it, but your mother certainly had input on what it should look like. He grinned at me. I guess it's outdated for you now, but we can change it. It might seem strange to you, but we've dreamed of having you with us since the night we lost you, and I saw his arm rising up, slowly and casually like he was going to put it around my shoulders as he told me what a loved little girl I was. More likely, he was going to shove me into that magical vault and torture me for however long they had left. So I did the only reasonable thing. The thing that my real mother had suggested, not told for me to do. I grabbed his arm and I bit him. Third, along with this letter you will find a package. When you open it, you'll understand why, when you were a teenager and I had set upon this plan after exhausting other alternatives, I started carrying you to a dentist 4 hours away. I needed a skilled crafter of dental prosthetics that would not ask questions when I paid him well and asked for strange things. The partial plate inside that box is molded after your current one, but instead of artificial eye teeth, you will find mine. By this point, you will most likely know that I died in a fire of my own setting, and if the authorities have told you that I appear to have had 2 of my teeth recently removed prior to my death, well, now you can consider that mystery solved. What is this point of this macabre memento? Well, it could be worn if you were ever to visit your parents. Unlike a normal partial, it has a titanium framework that makes it very durable even under extreme pressure or torque. The teeth have also been imbued by me with certain traits that, if you and only you were to wear them and bite your parents, they would find themselves both immediately incapacitated and in material breach of one of the pledges of the arrangement between us and the entity. With me dead, if you puncture both of them with my ID, the contract binding you will be dissolved and you will be free. Oh God. I see. The thing that was my father fell to his knees before collapsing on the floor, shuddering and thrashing. I was already turning to deal with my mother, but I was too slow. She slammed into me, knocking me to the ground. I tried to roll over, but she was fast, already crawling on top of me, a long knife in one hand, and her face twisted into a hateful mask. You stupid little jerk. You come into my house and think you can get us? She spat in my face. I'll skin you every day and have him grow it back for me. When it comes, you'll be bursting with more pain than if we'd had you the whole time. She had straddled me, using her knees to pin my arms while she held the knife to my throat. She was fairly strong for her size, but the size was still an issue. She was thin and petite and not ready for me to thrust my hips and torso into the air, throwing her forward while my open mouth rose to meet her. Her squeal nearly burst my eardrum as I bit deeply into her smooth left cheek. You jerk. You. What? I don't. What is? My mother fell over, spasming next to her husband as I got up and stepped away from them. Do ya have something to offer? Letting out a squeak, I turned around to see a hulking mass of shadows at the far end of the hall. No. I just want to go. I'm free, right? It paused a moment, and though I couldn't see its face, I felt like it was considering me and the thrashing forms further down the hall. Ya are. There was to be no sharing of boons between them, and I smell the gift of knowing on both of them now. The contract is void, and you are released. It let out a sound that might have been a laugh. They are not. Okay. Thank you. I ran down the hall, scraping against the far wall as I drew nearer to the corner where the creature waited and watched. I was terrified it would grab me as I turned into the living room, but it didn't move at all until I was past. Then I heard the floor creak with its weight as it moved behind me down the hall, and my parents began screaming louder than ever. As I opened the front door, their screams were suddenly gone. You may not remember, but I saw you that first night. I acted surprised when they called me as next of kin, and I went back down to Emerson Park where you were sitting in the back of an ambulance, gauze stuffed into your mouth like a chipmunk and tears streaming down your cheeks. You looked so small and pitiful, and I surprised myself by promising you that I'd take care of you. And I really have tried my best. I hope I've done enough to prepare you for this. To see you through the horror I helped cause. I think so. Not because I trust myself, but because I trust you. You are stronger and smarter than them. You can beat this. And when you do, leave as much of this as you can behind. This world is vast and terrifying beyond what most people realize, but it is more wonderful too. Be brave, find your joys and purpose. And remember that while we all have to save ourselves, it helps to have others that make us feel worth saving. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel Mark Stories.